Okay, welcome to the webinar, everybody. Glad you could make it on. Tonight is about the FreeLIfe juices, and I just brought up the website so you can familiarise yourself with the products. We've got the Himalayan Goji, G-O-J-I. We've got the Jule of the Orient, and we've got the GoChi. It's not showing up here. And we've got the TaiSlim product. So all of these, I've been hearing really terrific feedback from long-term customers of the former FreeLIfe company. Well, I'm going to start by showing you, this is Dean French, who he got quite high in FreeLIfe as a distributor. He had quite a team underneath him and was absolutely thrilled to find the original products available again, because for quite some time they weren't able to be purchased in the transition between FreeLIfe and longevity. So I'll just go ahead and start playing Dean's testimonial today.
Hey, hi everyone, I'm Dean French, and just because I can't make the meeting tonight, I just want to give you a quick rundown on the Himalayan Goji juice that I was involved with FreeLIfe about 15 years ago now. I left, I think, as GoChi was coming in. However, all my experiences with the Himalayan Goji juice are fantastic. Aside from a lot of people with weight loss, liver seemed to be a big thing, and heart. People with that were on heart medications looked like they could reduce it over time. I know actually one lady, she was on the Himalayan Goji juice for about 12 months and started working with her psychiatrist. She was on medications for psychiatric medications, and she was able to cut those down. As far as I know, the only supplement she was taking was the Himalayan Goji juice. Probably the most sort of touching story that I've had experience with was an elderly couple. The gentleman had esophageal cancer, and they basically removed his entire esophagus from between his stomach and his lungs. So he had a tiny bit of esophagus left between his stomach and lungs, which basically, and they'd taken out a lot of it between his lungs and his vocal cords. He was basically being fed on a tube. Couldn't eat, hadn't eaten solid foods for a couple of years. They tried it out. Took about 3 months, and he could have mashed food as a solid. And his wife was ecstatic within, I think, about 6 months, maybe 5 months. He was ecstatic because he could have his first chip. He did say he paid for it afterwards, but it was the most enjoyable thing. Unfortunately, he did pass away from the cancer, and an amazing result just in the quality of life for that gentleman. It was pretty amazing. I like the science background of the Goji juice, the spectral signature, the 4 polysaccharides that are absolutely unique in Himalayan Goji, and the processing method to keep them intact is probably the biggest thing for me, the quality assurance in maintaining the quality of the product. And a lot of, I actually don't have a lot of the old marketing material. However, there was a lot of studies on Goji being an adaptogen, and part of the adaptogenic side of it was those polysaccharides. So it'll be interesting to catch up and see if there's been any intervening research in the past 15 years. Hope you're all doing fantastically well, and yeah, take care.
I might just ask Kevin, if he could shed a bit of light on the polysaccharides that Dean mentioned. Do you have anything to add to that, Kevin?
You know, he would know a lot more than me. It's just to do with the sugars, and how complex they are, and we all know about how the body uses complex sugars a lot better than simple sugars. So
yeah,
that'll be my thought there.
Okay, all righty. Well, we'll just go to the next one, and this one is it's the science behind how GoChi cleans up the blood. And what led me to finding this video was a former customer. She happened to say in one conversation that she had a friend who the doctors needed to operate on, but they would not operate because of the poor state of her blood. So she got her friend onto the Goji juice, and obviously she, did therapeutic dosage. And within 10 days, she went back for another blood test, and the doctors were astounded at how clean her blood was and in what good shape it was. And they went ahead and did the operation. And she was the one that directed me to find this particular video, which you'll see the live blood analysis showing what happens in the bloodstream once a person gets onto Goji.
This is the blood of one of my patients right at the time when he came to see me at the clinic. It looks like there's stacks of coins piled against each other. Those are red blood cells. They're not supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be separate from each other, nice and round, floating around the blood, transporting oxygen, and this is not happening here. The blood is so acid that they're trying to protect themselves. So in this person, there's not an adequate transport of the oxygen. You see these little dots in the background? These are bacteria in the blood. We are not sterile. In this particular person, the bacteria levels are way above normal. These dark spots here in the background, they're pieces of cholesterol. These pieces clog up the small arteries. The smallest artery is the size of one of these brown red blood cells. So this one over here can clog a capillary, preventing this from coming in. That's where hearts are clogged up with cholesterol pieces. That's where brain clots happen. And these are blockages that happen from these pieces. Bacteria continue increasing the acidity, making the problem worse. Here's a white blood cell. It looks very unhealthy. This is what happened 24 to 36 hours after taking Goji in that same patient. The cells have separated, meaning the blood is becoming more alkaline. It's transporting oxygen better. That's why they feel better right away. They're oxygenating better immediately. The bacteria floating in the background, they're still there, but it's better. This is a white blood cell in the center. It's moving up and it's becoming wider. This white blood cell is starting to wake up. It's supposed to move across the blood, eat the bacteria, eat the cholesterol pieces, recognize what's supposed or not supposed to be there, and have a good time, of course. Because it's just like us. Again, the white blood cell in the center is becoming wider because it's moving up and to the sides. Its edges are not fixed. They're almost like a jellyfish in many ways. But he has feet, he has ears, he has eyes. He can eat, he can go to the bathroom, he can talk. He has memory. He knows if he saw something 3 years ago. And he can impart the memory to other cells. Now, this is after 5 days. There's no more bacteria in the background, almost none. Now, the red blood cells are a little pale in the center. Even though they're separate from each other, which is a major improvement, they're still not dark enough. That means they don't have enough hemoglobin. They're pale. Therefore, they're anemic. This patient is still anemic. They're still pale in the center, and he's still a little bit acidic. You see these two shiny things in the upper left corner? These are uric acid crystals. Hence the name, uric acid. These are acid crystals. This person is getting better, feeling better, less bacteria, and after 8 days of taking Goji. There's no more anemia, except maybe a little bit in the lower right-hand corner. But most of them have a good content of hemoglobin. So we're seeing at the cellular blood level of Goji, and subsequent alkalinization of the blood is affecting the parameters that we know make a big difference in predicting how these people are going to do. Not only that, but this white blood cell looks healthy. It has well delineated edges. It's not fussy like the first one we saw. Okay, this is a healthy white blood cell after taking Goji for approximately 10 days. It's touching this red blood cell very closely. It recognizes that it's part of itself. It doesn't attack it. But then there's something else down here. This is a fungus. This white ball is not supposed to be there. This is another fungus cell. They're rather large compared to the bacteria that are floating in the background. So he senses that and he goes after it. He sees it at a distance. He smells it. So he leaves the red blood cell alone and he goes after this fungus. And he starts surrounding it, checking it out. This is what your systems are supposed to be doing. If they're not doing this, they're not at optimal health. So he's already got a hold of it. And little by little, he's going to engulf it and eat it. Because that's what this cell does. He already has recognized this fungus as something that's not supposed to be there. This doesn't happen automatically. But little by little, as you can see, it's surrounding it and it doesn't let it go. This is almost completely inside of this cell already. And this is what we want to see in your system. Okay. There's many ways to show that Goji juice has a tremendous impact on health and on the optimal function of the human body. So now we see a few things that I want to summarize for you because they're very important to minimize your visits to your doctor. They are taking your pH, temperature, and the way you feel. Those three things. Because most of us are not as aware of how we're feeling. That's why there's so much stress in modern Western civilization. These are going to be parameters for you to measure how you are doing. Because as soon as you start taking those 2 to 4 ounces a day or whatever you might need to correct your alkalinity, you will start feeling better and your body will feel so much better because of the detoxification that occurs and the regeneration.
So I'm just going to introduce Steve Allen. Steve was the former warehouse manager for FreeLIfe many years ago. And during his time, he saw some remarkable improvements in people's health, I think within his own family group and friends, and of course customers. So I'm just going to hand it over to Steve now. If you can go ahead and just relate your experience, please, Steve.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, as I was telling you last week, we had the FreeLIfe account until about 3 years ago, and then FreeLIfe decided that they didn't want to carry on and they sold out to Longevity, and the warehousing function moved to New Zealand, which is fine. You know, so anyway, through our contact with FreeLIfe distributors that we had from time to time, we'd heard about the benefits of GoChi and Jule, and also TaiSlim, which is another popular product. And hadn't thought a lot of it. It was good that our customers had a good product and they were doing well, but never paid much attention to it. And until my sister rang me up, this is about 10 years ago, and she said, look, nephew Josh, my nephew, is in hospital with severe glandular fever. And I said, oh, God, that's no good, in Rockhampton. And it was on his 21st birthday, the poor thing. And she said, look, is there anything you can do for him, like that juice that you have in the warehouse? I said, look, I'll ask the guys. I'm sure they'll let us have a bottle or whatever. So I did, and they said, yeah, no worries, do it. So I sent a bottle of Jule up to my nephew, Josh, and being a young fella, he didn't read the label on the dosage you're supposed to take, and he drank a whole bottle of Jule, which is, I think, 750 mils or 700 mils or something, in a day. So yeah, I know. But anyway, young fellas, they don't always read this. It's a male problem, actually, generally. But anyway, he drank the whole bottle in one day, and within 2 days, he was out of hospital completely well, as if nothing had happened. And he had a blood test which said he had severe glandular fever. So he was a very unwell lad to be in hospital, I can assure you, because he is not one for doctors. And by the way, he's not one for natural health products either, still isn't. And, you know, to this day, which is, most people would be aware that with glandular fever, unfortunately, it's a recurring illness for people throughout their lives when their immune systems are down or stress or whatever it might be. And he's never had, in 10 years, he's never had a recurrence from that day to this. So it was an amazing story of recovery and not reading labels. So that gave me a bit of an insight into how it works, because as most people are probably aware, government specified dosages for supplements are very much on the low side of what people actually need or can take. Obviously, some things you've got to be careful with, but things like vitamin C, you've got to take a lot of vitamin C before, and I mean a lot. I couldn't tell you the exact amount, but it's a lot, before you can actually cause any harm to yourself. Generally, your body excretes any excess vitamin C. Same thing goes for things like magnesium and stuff like that. Some you've got to be careful of, like zinc. Probably most people are aware of that. But anyway, that's that story. So young Josh has been well. So a few years ago, not long before FreeLIfe shut down the Australian operations, I hadn't heard from a friend of mine for about 6 weeks or so. We normally keep in, pretty regular contact as you do with friends. And I thought, I better give him a call. I just had a feeling. So I called him and he said, oh, mate, I'm so sick. I go, what's wrong? He said, I got Ross River fever. He said, I slept for 2 weeks and I've been back at work for nearly 2 weeks doing half days, and I just come home, go to bed, and then wake up in the morning and go to work. He said, it's just been awful. I said, that's no good at all. I said, look, there's this product we've got in our warehouse called Jule, and I'm sure the guys at FreeLIfe will let me send a bottle to you. And we had this remarkable experience with my nephew 10 years ago, amongst many other stories that you hear from people who've got things like cancer. We all know that you've got to disclaim that potential, but they had cancer, had Jule or GoChi, and then got rid of it. So whether it was coincidental or the juice, you be the judge of that. Anyway, I said, look, if I send you a bottle, will you drink it? He said, well, yeah, probably. I said, look, I'll send you a bottle and put your wife on the phone. So he did. And I spoke to his wife, Julie. I said, Julie, make sure he drinks this bottle. I said, and if my nephew Josh's experience is anything to go by, get him to drink a bottle in a day. She said, okay, I will. And he took my advice, or at least his wife did, and he drank the whole bottle in one day. Now, back up with his story a bit. He was due to go on a around the world life trip of a lifetime. He's a keen bushwalker, and they were doing Central America, volcanoes and rainforest and all that sort of thing. And he was literally going to cancel his trip the next week when I actually rang him up, because he was that ill, and he knew he couldn't walk and all that sort of thing, couldn't go anywhere. He had barely enough energy to walk up the stairs to go to bed. So the bottle of Jule arrived on his doorstep a day or so later, and he followed my advice, which is not to follow the label advice, which, you know, again, disclaimer, probably should follow the advice. But this is an example of therapeutic doses of how these sorts of things can really help. So he drank the bottle in a day, and within 2 days, he was doing 10-kilometre walks along the Wynnum foreshore, and fit as a fiddle, and he couldn't believe it. And off he went on his trip, of course, had a great time and took lots of photos and came back, and he hasn't had any recurrences either. So those two stories made me really take notice about its ability, particularly Jule's ability, to deal effectively with viruses. And I'm guessing the therapeutic doses, it's a hard one. I'm not an expert. I'm just going on what a young fella did by mistake, by drinking the whole bottle in one day. It worked for him. It's not to say that it couldn't make other people ill. I'm not suggesting that everyone do that, but certainly larger doses than recommended doses would be something to consider. Maybe talk to a naturopath, I don't know. Someone who might know. Obviously, with you guys, if you do have uplines or professional people who can give you better information on what a therapeutic megadose is, but it's the megadose aspect of it that really struck me. The fact that they took a whole bottle, and both of them are fit, healthy people. My nephew's 31, my mate's 57. So they're both in good health, and they've had no negative health impacts from high doses of Jule, which is, you know, interesting discovery, I suppose. And as a matter of fact, the reason why I got in contact with Michelle was because, unfortunately, my daughter was diagnosed with glandular fever 2 weeks ago, very ill, and she's been mostly in bed for the last 3 weeks. And a shipment of Jule arrived this afternoon, and of course, so she's had her first mega dose this afternoon. She's a teenager, she's 19, dancer. So you can imagine the fatigue. It was just been horrific for her. She can't get out of bed, or she has been the last week or so, because her mum and I have been pumping her full of vitamins and supplements and the usual things that you do when people are sick. Because unfortunately, with most doctors, their only real answer is take fluids and rest. And you're thinking, gosh, is that as far as we've come in medical treatment of things like glandular fever, which has been around a long time? That's the best they can do. I'm thinking, jeepers. So anyway, we've been giving her supplements. So she has made a marginal improvement. Well, no marginal. She's made a reasonable improvement since the bottom about 2 weeks ago. But she's had the blood test, so she's got glandular fever. We know that. So it's not made up, and it's not some other virus which we think is glandular. It's been confirmed by 2 doctors, so we know that. So if Michelle wants me to, I'll give you an update on whether the mega dose with Jule has worked on my daughter as well.
Yeah.
Probably
Steve,
next week or something.
Yeah, you mentioned to me on a call last week that the Jiaogulan herb in China, was it?
Yes,
they
originally
found
from southern China.
Yeah, they found a certain level of health in people in that region, and they finally pinned it to the Jiaogulan herb.
That's right. Yeah. So there's all kinds of interesting stories. I don't know about you guys, but I love reading about, you know, people who make it to 100, what their secrets are, and all that sort of thing. So that particular area in China is what what they might call a blue zone in health topics, and that's places where people live well beyond the normal lifespan for a country or a region. And there's often a reason for it. You know, there's a Greek island called Icaria where the average person at death is 92 or something. It's remarkable. So they've got lots of different reasons why they might be very healthy. But in this particular area of southern China, there's these districts where they used jaguar, the people were living substantially longer than surrounding regions. And it was discovered in the Chinese census. The Chinese government discovered in the Chinese census back in I believe it was the 70s. And they thought, wow, that's significant difference. So they investigated and they managed in the end to isolate the herb, which is jaguar, which is part of the cucumber family, funnily enough. And that's how it sort of got into the West, really, because we found out about it through the, I guess, the media coverage in the Chinese, over the Chinese census, and, you know, the secrets to long life and health and all the rest of it. So, yeah, there you go.
And that's the key ingredient in the Jule of the Orient.
Yes, it is. I believe there's other ingredients too, like Goji, and I think they've got a few others because they made their own proprietary blend, so it can't be copied. So they've added a few things in there which make it even more effective. I think there's a kaya berry in there. There's I know there's Goji, but yeah, there's a few things in there that's made it even more effective for maintaining health, and in therapeutic doses, getting rid of significant illnesses. That's the harder bit to sort of, that's the harder bit for you guys to sort of take, because what do you tell people to do? Do you tell them to take 60 mil, like it says on the bottle, or 30 mil or whatever, 3 times a day? Or do you say, just go for broke and take it? So,
yeah,
a naturopath is a good person to talk. That's right.
Yeah, but you've got the actual, you know, rubber meets the road experience that the whole bottle in a day actually radically turned those people around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's potentially something worthwhile talking to, even within the company, how you approach that or don't approach that, or whether that's to do with TGA approval, that this is the dosage rate. Because one of the problems with the supplement industry is that the dosages are so low, you can't always get or see much in the way of positive effects, because people take these low doses for health maintenance, but they don't really tell you what to do when it comes to when you are actually sick. So that's my experience of the mega dosing, and no negative side effects whatsoever. So, you know, that's the story.
In longevity, Dr. Wallach has body weight dosage. So he works out, you know, per 45 kilos or 100 pounds. And, you know, if people want a rapid improvement, they'll do the body weight dosage. If they're not got any serious health challenge, they might just do the, you know, a standard dosage for maintenance.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, it's great stuff. I mean, the guys at FreeLIfe said, look, if you want to take the juice for your own personal use, you're welcome. And we said, great. And off times, particularly during winter, we'd take a case and we'd, you know, pour ourselves out 30, 60 mil or whatever, and have that in the morning and maybe in the evening or afternoon or something like that. We're going home from work. And that was great. And so I recommend it as a maintenance dose as well, for sure.
Yeah. So, Steve, I will keep in touch and find out what happens with your daughter. And I'll let everybody know in the Southern Crusaders WhatsApp group what the outcome has been now that you've got your supply back there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be very excited to get it back, the product back now. We've put ourselves on a permanent order because it made me realise this with my daughter that having a case or a bottle or 3 in the cupboard is a very worthwhile investment if someone gets ill. you do your best to stay well. You know, you try to eat well, you try to sleep well. You know, you try to stay away from stuff that's not so good for you. You know, most of us are like that these days. You know, we're not sort of blind to the, you know, the downside of your diet and all that sort of thing. But keeping a therapeutic dose up your sleeve, because sometimes you just get stressed or you're just unlucky, you know, and you pick up a bad disease or, you know, worse, you know, cancer or something like that. And you really want to hit things hard on the head straight away if you can.
Much appreciated, Steve. I think you sing a message there that comes straight from my heart. I'm constantly lecturing to everybody about therapeutic dosing. As a practitioner, I have what we call practitioner dosing, which is roughly around 10 times the standard dose. Therapeutic dosing based on your weight. And yes, and that can be up to 5, 6, 7, 8 times the normal dose. So yeah, a bottle, yeah, I can fully see how that fully works.